Clerk, call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Royce C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Love it. Pretty fast. Thank you. We're here tonight to conduct our public hearing on our redistricting. And so at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, as the judge said, this is public hearing as it relates to the redistricting of county commissioner precincts. What we're going to do is going to ask Mr. Bob Heath, who is our general counsel on this particular item, to address the court at this time. Mr. Heath.
Not to turn my back on the court.
That's all right.
But really, but I am. Really, what I was going to do is to address the audience primarily, and then as members, anyone who wants to comment on the plan, of course, we'll want you to address the court because that's what we're here for today. I would mention at the beginning, as you can see, we have someone who is translating with American Sign Language, if anybody needs that assistance. Also, we have a Spanish translator, and I would ask her to come forward in case there is anyone who would require Spanish translation or translation from English into Spanish, and I will ask her just to say something and to indicate that availability.
Buenas noches. Para que conste en el acta, si alguien necesita de interpretación para este proceso, simplemente levante la mano y estaremos a su disposición. Gracias.
Thank you. The purpose of this public hearing is not to debate the plan, not for the Commissioner's Court to debate it or to take final action on it. No action is going to be taken tonight, and the plan that you have is not a final plan. It's an illustrative plan. It's something that we can talk about, that you can give comments on, but it's one that the commissioners will or are expected to consider, and they want your comments on the plan. Any of those comments will be taken, they will be analyzed, they will be presented to the Commissioner's Court. Of course, they're here to hear them today, and they'll be available for the Department of Justice to consider them when whatever plan is adopted goes to the Department of Justice for pre-clearance. I want to give a very brief presentation tonight talking about what's going to happen, a little bit about the law, a little bit about the plan, but I'll try to keep it very brief. There are written documents outside, copies of the illustrative plan, the demographics of it, the criteria and guidelines the Commissioner's Court has adopted, and please feel free to pick one of those up, or a set of those up. Also, there's a sign-in sheet. So if you're here, please sign in. If you want to speak, sign in. Also, there are forms for written comments. If you want to make comments, we ask that you make written comments. That doesn't mean you can't speak, and we want to hear you speak, and it doesn't mean that whatever written comments have to be verbatim what you're saying. You can write a comment, I support the plan, I oppose the plan, I wish you'd put this precinct over here, or something like that. Doesn't have to be very long, but if you have it in writing and you have your name on it, that gives us somebody that we can contact. We can present that to the Department of Justice when this plan is submitted, and that we know exactly where you stand. When the redistricting process is undertaken, as we have done that, it happens essentially every 10 years. And the reason it happens is that every 10 years we get the census, and it tells us that population may have shifted. It may have grown more rapidly in one part of the county than another, and the districts which were in population balance 10 years ago no longer are. And if that's the case, then we have to redraw the lines, because under principles of one person, one vote, there is a constitutional requirement in the United States that these districts be balanced in population within about a 10% margin between the largest and the smallest district. We were outside that margin, not a whole lot, but we were outside by about, the variation was 14.73%, so well above the 10%, or above the 10%. This illustrative plan brings it down so that it is within the 10% deviation. So the first thing we have to do is make districts equal in population. We have done that. The next thing, we have to comply with Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act says that before any plan can be implemented, it has to be presented to the Department of Justice, which has to look at it and make sure it does not retrogress the opportunity of minority groups that are protected by the Voting Rights Act to participate in the process on an equal basis. In other words, it cannot backslide in regard to minority voting rights. We have drafted the illustrative plan to avoid retrogression. In districts with heavy minority percentages, there is a very slight reduction, just tenths of a percentage point, and the only reason for that is that the population of that particular district was smaller. It had to gain population. As you do that, it causes the population to decrease a little, but that is very minor and we believe is not retrogressive. And any plan that the Commissioner's Court will consider needs to be non-retrogressive. And that's Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. The other thing we have to look at is Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And that says a plan can't be discriminatory. Plans can be non-retrogressive and still be discriminatory. If we go and we take areas of minority concentration that are concentrated and geographically compact, and we split them up to put them in multiple districts when we could put them in a single district and provide greater voting strength. Similarly, if we have a very large concentration, we pack people in, where if we had moved them in a couple of voting districts, they could have greater voting strength. That's one of those is called cracking, the other is packing. Both of those are prohibited. We have tried to avoid that. Any plan that the Commissioner's Court will adopt will endeavor to do that. Now, I'm not going to go through all the other things about what the Voting Act requires, but those are the basic concepts. The idea tonight, as I say, is to hear from you. We will listen to those, any comments that are made. We will consider the comments. We will analyze. If anybody wants to present a new plan, and we have guidelines for submission of new plans. If you're going to submit one, you need to submit it tonight. We'll analyze that in terms of the criteria that the Commissioner's Court has adopted, which deal with things like following recognized boundaries, recognizing the existing districts, utilizing whole voting precincts to the extent possible, complying with the Voting Rights Act. So if you have something to say, we want to hear it. We would call on people who have signed up to speak. And again, if you do speak, and even if you don't want to speak but want to comment on the plan, we ask that you fill out a written comment form that we can have as a permanent record and that we can present to the Department of Justice. Also, this is being recorded and transcribed by a court reporter, so we can present that to the Department of Justice and have that to analyze whatever you say, because we do want to pay attention to that. So with that, I will turn it over to the judge to call on anyone who is interested in speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heath. Again, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to make a comment or ask a question about this illustrative plan at this point in time? Again, no one wishing to make any comment or ask any questions at this time?
Your Honor, if you would just ask those that are in attendance tonight, if they do not want to speak, if they would simply ensure that they use a sign-in sheet that's available at the entrance to the Commissioner's courtroom.
Yeah, please, if you have not, please sign in before you leave. And with that, and there being no one wishing to speak, we're adjourned.
There was a lady in the hall. I don't know whether
She's with the auditor's office.
was that Laura?
Yes.